A new PTS just dropped for Tom Clancy's The Division 2, and, as always, I've got some thoughts. Unfortunately, there aren't too many new items, so this will be quick. Okay, so we'll just go through the new gear step by step. I don't know how people were surprised at how good Refractor was going to be, but here we are. You've got a turret and drone that can both hit for an average of 100,000 a shot, and you're doing 10% of that. That's at least 20,000 repairs a shot times multiple shots a second. The fact that it spreads to the rest of the group is nutty as well. Have one on your team and a different agent with an artificer feeding both of your skills. This is just really powerful, just even based on the fact that it requires no management. You don't need to keep one eye fixed on your teammates, and you don't need line of sight. You just focus on killing the enemies as fast as possible with your skills and let the talent take care of the rest. For the turret and drone, you're not even sacrificing that much damage. I don't do skill builds really, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the best turret and drone build is basically 3-piece Empress, 2-piece Hanyu, and 1-piece Wyvern. That gives us 30% skill damage from the brand bonuses, which is only slightly above 4-piece Refractor and 2-piece Hanyu for 35%. If you're running different skills like a status effect or maybe the oxidizer, you're going to need the second minor attribute slots for skill haste, and that's where this gear set is really going to fall behind. If you do use the status effect though, I'd highly recommend running the courier named backpack to get that status effect spread, since of course we aren't running Eclipse. That's enough theory crafting for Refractor. Let's move on. PSA. Killing things in the range counts towards your journey, so maybe try it right at the start of the new season and see if it still works. The Oxpecker. I can't believe this name or this design made it into the game. It looks like a hideous cross between off-brand Nerf gun and a Milwaukee power tool. This is actually kind of hilarious. It says it loses 10% shield health a second, but when I tested it, it only took 6 to destroy the shield. And yes, it destroys your shield and triggers the disorient. Funny thing is, I made a mistake. Dodd made the same one actually. If you equip glass cannon, it'll apply that extra damage to the shield. So this wasn't an accurate test. Definitely don't use glass cannon for this weapon. In reality, it is actually doing what it's supposed to. It won't actually take seconds to kill your shield because your shield has active repair on it. So it'll actually take longer. If you use something like Foundry or the Artificer Hive, it'll take even longer. This is an interesting exotic. The higher your shield health, the more damage the talent will passively do on tick to your shield that you'll then have to recover. The more damage you have on your build, the faster it will recover. I've seen pretty compelling evidence that this can be very strong. You're likely best served by efficient ways to raise your shield health a bit without dropping too much damage. It's definitely a bit of high risk, high reward. One major downside is that you can't just casually keep your shield out to deflect enemy fire, and Ox doesn't repair your shield if it isn't out. This means we're probably going to take some unnecessary fire while our shield isn't out, and since shields have relatively high base repair compared to repairs on our armor, we're essentially losing out on those benefits of a shield. I didn't get a chance to test this SMG with Negotiators. If it procs the damage off of Negotiator's damage transfer, then it could be very, very good to use the set with it. If not, Negotiators is probably a really bad set to use with it. But let's think about some alternatives here. A higher DPS SMG with the Sadist talent and Vanguard on our chest might be a viable alternative. Not only does this provide more damage than something like Obliterate, it also benefits the team and gives us a similar benefit. It kind of plays in a similar way. When you really need it, pull out the shield and it's basically invincible for a time. Other alternatives could be the new Exodus gloves, which we'll talk about in a bit, or the Artificer Hive, or even both. Regardless, this SMG is not best in slot. It certainly isn't going to work in every scenario, but it provides a new and fun way to play. It would be even cooler if it gave you more damage based on how much shield health you were missing, aka something like you get an extra 5% damage for every 1 million shield health you were missing. That would be pretty sweet. On to the Shiny Monkey brand. Skill duration is pretty much only good for the pulses, the repair chem, and the oxy chem. Maybe the decoy or defender if we're stretching it a little bit. This bonus is very specific and only applies to a small amount of skills. However, the skill efficiency is very general, being useful for any skill. It's pretty good, but 5% is pretty low, especially when you're not going to need every single stat that skill efficiency provides. You only need 1 or 2 depending on the skill. The 52% repair skill is pretty bonkers, but that doesn't even put it ahead of the pack. Best use would be for a repair chem build, but in that scenario you're likely using future initiative, in which case you won't have the slots for it unless you run the ninja bike bag. And in that case, you'd be better off with One Piece Alps, One Piece Murakami. So it seems like it's good at first, but it's pretty mid. Much better to run Murakami or Alps. As you can see, it just isn't outdoing either of these. This brand set just doesn't make any sense. Maybe if they made the first bonus skill efficiency and then jacked up the other bonuses, it would have a place. But as is, it's just a suboptimal pick for any situation. The grease is worthless. The brand bonus of skill duration doesn't do anything for status effects, so you might as well use Electrique to get another minor attribute. Skill duration and status effects will never go together. This is another terrible piece of gear. The Combat Medic Backpack. I think it's a tough sell for a backpack. Maybe it's usable for a tank combat medic where you just run around picking up your allies and being an unstoppable tank. But even then, is that really how you want to run a build just for that? Sure, it'll probably make reviving players a whole lot easier and more successful, or maybe it just won't be enough for legendary, but how often do you really need this, and wouldn't we rather just use a reviver hive since that's faster and less dangerous anyway? I don't know. The Exodus gloves. I initially dismissed these, but after using them, they're pretty dang good. They might even be best in slot. I noticed that when the talent procced, I was able to regen about 40% of my armor, but I didn't really understand why until I saw Dodd's video about it. When it procs, it takes you completely out of combat for 3 seconds, in which time the out of combat regen takes place. So not only do the enemies completely stop attacking you, so you become invincible for 3 seconds, you also get 40% armor repair abouts. This is basically a budget unbreakable and a budget vanguard talent in the glove spot. You are of course sacrificing a brand bonus, 12% critical hit damage, and arguably a core attribute. The armor core is arguably a good attribute for running a shield, and if you want that, you're only dropping 25% critical hit damage. If you want a weapon damage core there, that's an extra 15% weapon damage in addition that you're sacrificing for what's essentially 2 halves of a chest talent. I'd say that's a very, very good trade-off any day of the week in almost any activity. Accidentally overpeak in a legendary? Exodus has your back. Get in trouble with the hunter in countdown? Exodus has your back. During those 3 seconds, you can get to cover and pop an armor kit or take a repair skill. One thing that I didn't test is how this interacts with explosive drones and grenades. Grenades launched by enemies will probably still hit you if they're already in mid-flight, so you might be screwed if you get hit by a legendary gold grenadier who will fire multiple rounds in quick sequence. Drones, I'm less sure. They might just change target to one of your teammates, or they might just wait for the 3 seconds, or they might self-destruct. Let's hope for the last option. Regardless, the Exodus is incredibly powerful, and I'm starting to think that it's best in slot. The final thing we'll discuss. They're knocking down the reload times for pretty much every single weapon. I'm not holding my breath that any of them will actually be correct, but let's cross our fingers and hope. This should make the game feel better and is yet another blow to the viability of fast hands. Okay, so that covers the changes in the PTS. Smash that like button and subscribe, you know the deal. Let me know in the comments, do you agree with my takes or do you disagree? I want to hear your opinions down below. All feedback is welcome. Check out our playlist for more content like this, and thanks for watching, agents. Until next time, this has been Dispatch. Take care out there.